Let's make an awesome bioactive tank for a crested gecko.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be making a bioactive enclosure for a crested gecko. Crested geckos are these cutie big geckos from New Caledonia, and they make really great pets due to their handleability and playfulness.
For this build, we're going to use an 18 by 18 by 24 ExoTerra glass tank. And like always, we started off by reinforcing that inner seam with our black aquarium safe silicone. We ran a bead along all of the seams with our caulk gun, and then we smoothed it out with our fingers while being careful to wear gloves because this stuff can get everywhere. Once it's all completely sealed off and hopefully extra strong, we can move on to actually scaping the tank, starting off with the hardscape.
As we like to say, the hardscape is the bones of the tank. Making sure that your hardscape looks right really helps the rest of the tank and the rest of the build go by so much more easily. So what is hardscape? It's usually just your wood and your rocks. So in this build, we're using ghost wood and some corkbark flats. We want to make some flat areas for the gecko to hang out at in a variety of different heights. We also use these angular branches to help create ramps for the gecko to move up and down more easily throughout the tank. When we're doing the hardscape, we often have to try different pieces, holding it up against the tank to see what might be the best position for especially these sticks. Once it's positioned the way we want it, we use our extra strong hot glue to lock it in place. Sometimes we'll also use silicone with some supports. All these materials are going to be linked in the description, and it's a great way to support the channel.
This hardscape is all going to revolve around these two main sticks, which we put only on the back and right wall. We want the left to be open glass, which actually presents some challenges for the background because we have to account for two different viewing angles. We want it to look great both from the front and from the side, and I think we did a really good job by just putting the hardscape mostly in that back corner.
We wanted to incorporate some plants along the wall, so we cut up the plant pots and glued them to the walls using our strong hot glue. These will give arboreal substrate pockets for the plants to grow in. And with that done, we're ready to start on creating our background. For this tank, we're making a unique 3D background with carbonized cork.
Carbonized cork is made up of ground up pieces of cork bark that have been compressed together. It gives this great natural texture and it retains moisture really well, which lets plants grow all over it. There's two kinds. There's heat-treated cork and there is chemically fused cork. And we always recommend the heat-treated cork because the adhesive sealed ones aren't always pet safe. When you buy it, it comes in a big 2-inch thick sheet. It's basically like the cork board that you might see in a classroom or something like that. And we break that sheet into pieces and crack those pieces in half, which leaves you with a flat surface on one side and a bumpy and uneven surface on the other side. You can check out our video on carbonized cork backgrounds for more detailed information on how we like to make these backgrounds. But basically, we apply silicone to the flat side and then we can stick it straight on our back wall.
As we're attaching these pieces, we also silicone in and around our existing hardscape to connect it to the glass and the rest of the background for maximum strength. We apply more and more cork pieces throughout the tank, starting with larger pieces and going down to smaller pieces as we're filling it in. We also like to use larger pieces toward the back and smaller pieces toward the front to give an extra sense of depth. And once we get a good mosaic going, we fill in all the little gaps with smaller and smaller pieces of cork bark until we don't really see any glass left. This cresty normally hangs out on a cork round, so we made sure to incorporate one around the middle of the tank. He can hang out on top of it or inside it, and it's accessible from the front and the back. Once we were happy with where it was at, we siliconed it in place.
With that, our background is basically done, so we took the tank outside and hosed it off. Heat treat carbonized cork, like the stuff that we used, is covered in a thin layer of ash and has kind of a burnt smell. So we just wash that thin layer of ash off. You can see the cork gets a little bit lighter and it's going to be easier for plants and stuff to stick to it, and it'll be completely non-toxic for our pets.
And now we're ready to bring it inside and put in a drainage layer. A drainage layer is something that sits at the very bottom of your tank. When there's a lot of water in the tank, it'll flow through the dirt and collect in the drainage layer, which prevents the dirt from getting too waterlogged or moldy and helps the overall health of your plants. We like to use aquarium sponge for our drainage layer, so that's what we're doing in this tank. It usually comes in a big sheet that you can cut to size, but we're using some leftover bits, so we're having to Frankenstein it a bit. We made sure the entire bottom was covered, and then we're ready for the next step.
All right, do you guys see those little cracks in between the pieces of carbonized cork? We're going to fill those in with some wet sphagnum moss right now. This is going to help the walls retain moisture, and it's a great way for plants to grow up and on the background in the future. It also helps fill in those holes that are a little bit too small to go in and silicone and stuff them all exactly with tiny, tiny pieces of carbonized cork. With the background done, it is time to black out the tank.
We always black out our tanks because it makes our shadows pop and it increases the contrast, adds a sense of mystery to the tank, and in our opinion, always makes the tank look 10 times better. So we have a few different methods we use, but lately, and for this tank, we're gonna be using peel and stick vinyl. We measured the vinyl to size, then we sprayed down the glass with water, and we peel the vinyl like it's a giant sticker and applied it carefully. A pro tip that we started doing recently, as you can see, is that we only peel up a few inches and stick it down, and then peel a few more inches and stick it down. So this just helps it stick on more easily and gives us more control when we're squeegeeing out the water. When it's laid flat the way we want it, we trimmed off any excess film.
Next, we want to hide some of our transitions in the background. These might be places where two logs join together or where we accidentally spilled some silicone earlier and it just doesn't look great. So we're going to go in with our Black Aquarium Safe silicone and smear it over these areas to cover it. And then we're going to bring in some of our dry substrate and pat it down, and it's going to stick to all the areas that we just covered in that wet silicone. So using this, we can blend a stick straight into the background and help cover up any mistakes we made earlier.
And now we're going to start planting the background. We started off with some ferns. We're using rabbit's foot fern and a lemon button fern, planting them in the pots that we added to the background earlier. We fill those pots up with our substrate first, then add the ferns gently. If you buy your ferns from a garden center like we usually do, make sure you thoroughly rinse the roots so that there's no pesticides or anything brought into your enclosure. Next up, we added this syngonium to the bottom, sandwiched between the driftwood and cork bark round. We filled in around it with more substrate. For our substrate, we used a mix of repti soil and damp sphagnum moss. We also filled in the rest of the bottom with this substrate mix. We also added a small cutting of pothos, which we're hoping will climb and give a really dense background appearance.
Now we can add our springtails. These guys are the backbone of any cleanup crew. Small bugs that live in your soil, and they break down animal waste, decaying plant matter, and turn it into awesome nutrient-rich soil for your plants. We just dumped a bunch of them in there. The very first thing these guys are going to be munching on is our leaf litter. So we crushed up some leaves and added it as a thick layer of leaf litter on top. Don't worry, we're going to go in and add even more layer for your crested geckos. You want a thick layer of leaf litter because you don't want them accidentally eating dirt.
Now we're going to be adding moss to the tank. We put the sheets of moss on flat surfaces as well as along the walls. We like to pin it in place using toothpicks or staples or paper clips or whatever you have on hand. Hopefully this is going to climb up the walls and grow to cover up the background. People ask us a lot about moss care and watering, how to keep moss alive in your tank. Our big tip is to make sure that your misting schedule works out so that the moss gets thoroughly hydrated at least once per day and has some time to dry out in between times where it's misted. We also attach some moss to the branches, and to do this we use cotton thread, which will break down over time once the moss starts attaching to the branch by itself.
We finished off with a little bit of moss on the bottom along with the rest of our cleanup crew. We're using some dairy cow isopods. These guys are super fun. They'll break down that leaf litter, any animal waste, any extra food, and they can be a fun little snack for a crested gecko.
We love having isopods as cleanup crew because they're a lot bigger than the springtails, and it's always fun to look in your tank and see them crawling around.
While the isopods get settled, let's take a break from planting and add the Automister. Okay guys, we really recommend Automisters. We hear a lot of people say that they're having a hard time keeping the plants alive in their tanks, and for us at least, Automisters make an absolute world of difference. Whether you go on vacation, whether you just forget to water, the Automister makes everything so much easier. So here is the posable nozzle that the Automister uses. It's got two heads and you can point them to cover basically 360 degrees. And we're going to take some aquarium tubing and run that from the port at the back of the tank and run it to the front and connect it to our nozzle. Then we're going to zip tie that nozzle in place, running the zip ties through that mesh top and tightening them to really hold it still. With that locked in place, we can pull the aquarium tubing taut out the back and zip tie it so that it is attached to the lid. We can trim the zip ties and trim our aquarium tubing to be the desired length. we can connect that tubing to our control box and then take another length of tubing and connect that to the inlet on the control box. This is going to go to the intake wherever your water gets sucked up from. For our water reservoir, we're using this plastic jug of distilled water. We poke a hole in the lid and then thread that intake pipe through. Here is what it all looks like. Let's turn it on and do a quick test.
We finished up the planting with some red-veined fittonia for a pop of color. We picked plants that grow well in a humid environment, are non-toxic, and can stand up to a CRESTED trampling. If you want to learn more about plant selection, check out our video on it. Let us know some of your favorite plants to use in vivariums, and if you've made it this far, drop down your favorite plant emoji below. To finish the tank, we topped off the bottom with another round of leaf litter. For crested geckos, it's really important that we have a thick layer of leaf litter on the ground because as they hunt and eat crickets, we want to make sure they're not going to get a mouthful of dirt. We also had some other botanicals, so we dropped those in.
All right, we're all done. It is time for a grand review. We are happy with this tank. I think it's awesome. It's looking great from both sides. We've got plenty of places, both high and low, for the crested gecko to hang out, as well as some dark caves to really hide away in if he's feeling shy. This tank is really only going to get better with time as these plants grow in and give more areas to climb and more cover for the gecko.
We've gotten some updates from our client who says that the crested gecko is adjusting really well to the new home and loves to explore all the spots that we've built for him. Tell us what you think of this video. Would you put your crested gecko to live in here? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for tank updates and more videos like this one.
If you're in the Bay Area and you want to commission a tank like this one, then send us an email at tangledearthvivariums@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, also Tangled Earth Vivariums, linked in the description. Send us a picture of your favorite tanks. We've gotten a lot of photos from you guys. We're super proud and they all look amazing. And I think we're going to do a video where we talk about some of our subscriber tanks. So it's not too late. Send us some photos of your tanks and feel free to hit us up with any questions.
That's it for this video. Thank you all for watching and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.